So, first of all, the importance of visitor research has increased during the last years because there are growing challenges that face cultural institutions. One is they compete for visitors' financial and time budgets with a strong growing variety of leisure activities. This entertainment business is getting bigger and bigger. Streaming services enhance competition dramatically. This, of course, affects especially the film branch, the movies, and also the managers of film festivals as well. Because Netflix and co. take away a lot of viewing time from cinema and from classic TV. There's a growing legitimacy pressure and decreased public funding. So public authorities are also under pressure to justify the money they give to cultural institutions more than formerly. Corona has caused in some areas a lasting decrease in audience numbers, in some not, but in some there are. And economic decline and inflation reduces financial budgets on all sides, on the sides of the cultural institutions, on the side of the visitors, on the side of the sponsors, and also on the side of the public administration. So culture has to try harder to maintain its activities and make attractive offers. Also, other tendencies which are older, social differentiation has decreased, target groups become smaller and are more difficult to grasp than before. Addressing the younger audiences, which is always an issue, is the most urgent challenge. Today, younger people are less likely to turn to high culture offerings than formerly. Also, the culture sector today predominantly lives by the generation 50 plus. The question is how long? The situation now is still rather comfortable because 50 plus has a lot of time, has a lot of money, and they have interest in visiting culture offers, but this will not last forever. So there is some pressure, so I try to adjust the picture here. Just for a brief introduction, I would like to give you some figures about cultural participation. Cultural participation in society, 70% have visited exhibitions, theaters, classic concerts, opera, ballet, and so forth, at least once in the last 5 years. So this sounds a lot. For most people, cultural visits are only one of many leisure activities, and they always have to decide where do I go to, what do I choose from a growing offer of different leisure activities. The legitimacy of culture institutions is very high. This is something we find in almost every survey. People support cultural institutions even if they don't visit them. I've also found this in Cologne. I did, as I mentioned, several non-visitor studies in Cologne. 80 or 90% of the people say we have to fund culture in Cologne. It's very important for the city. It's important for the integration of different groups within the city and so forth. But this is independent from visiting the cultural institution. The demographic factors are usually that visiting cultural offers increases with higher level of formal education. Usually women tended to be more interested in culture than men, older people more than younger. The core audience is increasingly overaged. And younger people are not following suit to the same extent. And so far, audience does not reflect social diversity. Is this big enough for you to read this? Is this better? Yeah, okay. Here are some figures from a survey that has been conducted after Corona. What has changed after Corona? Are there lasting changes, or are we going back to normal everywhere? So here you see some figures. So what people say, spend my leisure time differently after Corona, 77%. So they got used to other habits, how to spend their leisure time during that years. I'm used to stay at home, 71%. Not up to date anymore. Expensive tickets, no money. Lack of interesting offers nearby, 50%. And this also is in connection with the answers I mentioned before. When people go out less, they also do learn less about what's going on in their city, what activities. When they stay at home all the time, they do not learn where they could go. They just think, well, I'm sitting here and I don't know where I go to. So it's a kind of circle. If people stay at home, they do not learn where they could go to. When the cultural institutions, when their visit is going down, the offer is also decreasing. People tend to be more at home and so forth. So we have a kind of bad circle here. Still, avoid places with many people. 41% say. And yeah, lack of leisure time and lack of interesting offers. So yeah, this is the situation. This was conducted, this survey in 23, 1 year ago. So the data are very fresh. As I mentioned, for many cultural institutions, the audience seems to come back. The house is full. But this is first not always the case. Some institutions, also many institutions, still suffer from too small visitor capacity utilization. What we find in our studies now after Corona is that these increase of visits we see after Corona is due to more visits of the same persons. Cultural institutions do not count visitors, they only count visits. And in many cases, they do not know where these visits come from. Do they come from many people, or do these visits come from a small group of people who are very active, who go very often? And this seems the case. This means that parts of the core audience, older people and well-educated, female and so forth, have increased their number of visits, while others have still decreased their visits. People who tend to come less often after Corona come less often or do not come at all. What we really find that the core audience does come more often. So what we have here, the increase in visits, is not founded on a big basis of different visitors, but only on a small group of core visitors. And this is dangerous. Because if these core visitors reduce their number of visits, then again, the capacity utilization will go down again. So the increase in visits we are seeing now are probably the effect of kind of post-pandemic compensation, kind of effect of increased marketing activities, kind of increased offers. Also, this core audience has a catch-up need to see as many as possible cultural offers. But what we need in this situation is a more diverse audience. We do now rely too much on a core audience that comes very often, especially after Corona. So what we do need is a higher proportion of young people, of newcomers, first-time visitors, and also of resident visitors, not only of tourists. So this is the situation we have. And the forecast is not so very good. The forecast is that these effects, post-pandemic compensation, increased marketing, and so on, that these effects will slow down after a while. And this may cause then that the number of visits in some time will decrease again. It's a forecast. Of course, it can turn out differently, but this is the possibility. So we are not set now. It's not okay, but we have to do more to stabilize our audience. So then, apart from what I mentioned about Corona, there is also some general issues why we want to do visitor research. For instance, we want to increase ticket turnover and the financial share that is contributed by visitors. How can we do this? Private sponsors want to know who is coming to us. We give them figures about our audience. And we show them interesting target groups. We want transparency about our visitors and their perspectives on the offer. We want to know who we reach and do not reach. And why is this? Political sponsors need to legitimize tax money they spend on us. We help them by showing the acceptance of festivals or other cultural offers besides pure visitor statistics. We can show our sponsors the impact of sponsoring activities, enabling them to give more money using their sponsorships in a targeted manner. We want to prove the acceptance of our work and move away from sole statistics. We want to know where our strengths and weaknesses are from the perspective of our visitors. And finally, visitor research is helpful for all marketing decisions, such as pricing, selecting offers, optimization of service, selection of communication channels. What it is not helpful for is to make decisions about the offer itself. Marketing is not to judge about what is to be presented or what is a value offer or what is a less value offer and things like that. This is just up to the artists and to the program work. But visitor research can give you some ideas how you can communicate your offer better to your audience. Okay, so this is the idea why visitor research and also non-visitor research is important. A few years ago, there was a study conducted in Germany about the experience of cultural institutions with visitor research. Now, this is the other side. In this survey, more than 50% of the institutions promised more of visitor research. 7% were disappointed. So there's a bigger share of institutions, they want to do visitor research, but say, well, there was not so much I could draw from it. What are the common problems when doing visitor research? One thing is lack of clarity about what exactly should be studied. What do I want to get to know? Audience structure, promotion, ticketing service, programming issues, or everything altogether. This usually results in overloaded questionnaires, which are too big and too long. Questions that are not precisely elaborated, and a lack also of scientific standards. We also have too small respondent numbers to be really representative for our audience, which is due to time constraints and money constraints in the institutions. The results are not representative. And also, the results after seem to be little meaningful, patchy, and they are only partially implemented or not at all. And then it's put into the corner and it's left aside and it's done, and there's disappointed. So now what we try to do here is to give you an idea how we can make things better like this. So far, is there any remark, any question to this? No. Okay.